Welcome to the ICA 1.4 video. Our goal today is to convert expressions between radical form and exponential form. Now, I'm going to put that aside for just 1 second. Our goal, again, converting back and forth, this is actually really easy. There's going to be a lot of problems and questions that we're going to have to answer that involve all of the old rules of exponents. So, before we go anywhere, I want to make sure that you can recall that anything raised to the 0 power is 1, and if I have a negative exponent, it goes to the other side of a fraction. Alright, so we're definitely going to see this one a bunch throughout this whole thing. Remember, if x to the n times x to the m, if I have the same base, what do I do with my exponents? And multiply my bases. My exponents are then going to be added. So n plus m. And if I'm dividing my bases, then I would subtract my exponents. And finally, and this one we're going to see as well, finally, if I have an exponent and I raise it to another exponent, then I multiply those exponents. So we're going to see this one, right, where you have a negative exponent, it goes to the other side of a fraction, it becomes a positive exponent. Notice the number doesn't change, it just goes to the other side of the fraction. And here, whenever I have a power raised to a power, I multiply. Okay, so those are the two we're going to see throughout today. You may run across one of these other three eventually. You're still going to be responsible for knowing those. But for today, you need to remember that if I have a negative exponent, it goes to the bottom of a fraction. And if I have a power to a power, then I multiply. Okay? Alright, so let's go back to our goal now. Let's go back to our goal. Our goal is to convert expressions between radical form and exponential form. Alright, so here we go. From radical form, in radical form, if I have, let's call it the bth root of x to the a power. Alright, so my index is b, not the multiplier in front. Remember, the index here is b, and my a, this is an a. I know it looks like a 9. Mr. Stevens, your handwriting is terrible. Okay, thank you. I know. Then it's going to turn into an exponent. So the exponent is going to be the power divided by the index. So I have a, it's an a over b. So this, again, here's radical form. This over here on this side would be exponential form. All right, so let's take a look at this pattern. So the index here is b, the exponent is a, it turns into x raised to the a over b. All right, so let's see. You're going to get a question on your homework that's going to say convert to exponential form. Those are the directions, and you're going to get a problem that looks like this. Well, now we can just pattern match, right? My index is a 3, my exponent is a 4, so I know, so this is the example, I know that my base is x, so I'll have x raised to a over b, so here's my a and there's my b, so it would be raised to the 4/3 power. Now let's try another one here. Let's try another one that's not so obvious. What about the square root of y? Alright, so what's my base? My base here is y. Well, what is the power of y? What's that power going to be? Well, if it's no power there, we understand it to be a 1, right? And now I want to look, what's my index? If there is no index here, we understand it to be a 2. So the square root of y is really y raised to the 1/2 power. Okay, all right. one more example, just so you can see what happens if your base is a little weird. All right, so what happens if I have like the fifth root of, let's go with 2x raised to the third power. Okay, well, this whole thing in parentheses is going to be my base. Right here where x was my base, I was good. Y was my base and I'm good. Well, here, the 2x is the base. And I'm going to leave that in parentheses because at 2x still has this power. So I'm going to leave him in parentheses. And I'll be raising it to the 3/5 power. Now, what about going the other way around? Well, that's a really good question. So, what happens if I have something like 5x raised to the 2/3 power? Right? I want to be able to convert that, so then you'll get the other direction. Say convert to radical form. All right. So what is my index? Well, here I got to look at the fraction, the denominator of the fraction here in this exponent. This is going to be my index. So I know I have an index of 3. My base then is 5x, and the exponent then would be 2. So I'd have the cube root of 5x squared. All right, not so bad. All right, so that's how I'm going to go back to the other way. Now, let's try one where it's not so friendly. What about, let's go with x raised to the -4/5. Well, now my exponent here, look, my exponent's negative. And when I have a negative exponent, remember, when you have a negative exponent, the negative exponent, it goes to the other side of the fraction, and then the exponent becomes positive. All right, well, what does that mean? Well, I don't have a fraction here to start with, so now I have to create a fraction. And now x will then be raised to the +4/5 power. And then I have to convert this into radical form. So then I'll still have 1 over, and the index here is a 5, and x raised to the 4th power. All right? Okay. So you're going to run across a couple of examples that look like this. And it's okay. Just remember that the negative exponent sends it to the other side of the fraction, and then the exponent becomes positive. Once you have a positive exponent, then you can convert it to radical form.